The rap game has flipped completely since the old school era, and now, the legends who built hip-hop from the ground up are finally speaking out about how different things have become. From Snoop Dogg, clowning rappers for hiding behind auto-tune,
harmony, melodies, that don't even matter no more. It's just auto-tune.
To Dr. Dre calling out how today's albums are packed with too many producers fighting for credit.
It's like, I don't like the fact that there's like 9 different producers on one album.
To Andre 3000 boldly saying that today's rappers have zero creativity left in their craft. The OGs are making it clear. The new generation might have the fame, but they don't always have the flavor.
A lot of artists sound the same because you can quickly jump on a mic.
So let's break it down. This is what hip-hop's biggest icons really think about the state of rap today, starting with the one and only Dr. Dre. Dre, the genius who turned the West Coast into a worldwide powerhouse, isn't impressed with the direction hip-hop's taken. The same man who co-founded NWA in the late 1980s, who shook the culture with The Chronic in '92 and Doggy Style in '93, says the art form he helped shape just doesn't hit the same anymore. As the mastermind behind Death Row Records, Aftermath Entertainment, and later Beats by Dre, his fingerprints are all over the DNA of modern hip-hop. His production defined an era: crisp drums, deep bass, and that unmistakable California sound that made the world move. Back then, Dre made sure every beat felt cinematic, every verse heavy with purpose. But today, he's not feeling the same spark. In a 2023 interview with Kevin Hart, Dre kept it real. He said hip-hop will always evolve, but the new wave doesn't move him the way it used to. He wasn't hating, just honest. "I get it," he said. "Music changes with time," but you could tell the fire was missing for him. Then by late 2024, he got even more blunt. Speaking to Complex magazine, Dre said flat out that modern rap doesn't inspire him. Nothing out now makes him think, "Damn, I wish I made that track." And that used to happen all the time back in the day. That's coming from a man whose beats built the foundation for legends: Snoop, M, Kendrick, the kind of sound that birthed movements. So when Dre says he's uninspired, that's not small talk. That's hip-hop's godfather ringing the alarm. What really eats at Dr. Dre isn't just the lyrics or the sound, it's the way albums are made now. Back in the day, when he crafted The Chronic, he controlled everything. Every snare, every synth, every verse placement. The whole project flowed like one complete story because it all came from one creative vision, his. But these days, Dre says albums sound like patchwork projects, stitched together by 5, 10, even 15 different producers, each chasing a trend instead of a feeling. And to him, that kills the magic. He opened up about it in an October 2024 sit-down with Snoop Dogg, explaining how technology completely flipped the art of production.
Elaborated. I don't like the fact that there's like 9 different producers on one album. I like the idea of one producer on one album. The continuity is everything.
Yeah, where did that come from? Where did it come from where you got cats that want to be with 9 different producers on one album and stuff like that? When the hell did that start?
I don't know. I don't know, but I don't like it.
According to Dre, the internet made it too easy. Artists can now hop online, download a random beat, lay down a few bars, and call it a song. He feels that a lot of today's rappers skip the craft part, the blood, sweat, and hours of studio grind that used to go into making a timeless track. Everybody's using the same 808s, the same plugins, the same patterns, Dre said. Where's the musicianship? And that's coming from a man who used to spend entire nights layering live bass, strings, and percussion, engineering sound that felt alive. For Dre, watching hip-hop become what he calls a copy-and-paste culture feels like betrayal, like the genre he built from the ground up has traded passion for shortcuts. His frustration runs deep, especially with how fragmented albums feel now. To him, a great record should have a heartbeat, not a playlist of disconnected beats that sound like they belong to different worlds. But while Dre's issue lies with the production, this next legend's concern hits even deeper. It's about the artists themselves. Enter Snoop Dogg, government name Calvin Broadus Jr., the West Coast icon who slid onto the scene in the early 90s with that effortless, laid-back flow that balanced NWA's raw aggression. His debut album Doggy Style didn't just go platinum, it defined a generation. Fast forward 3 decades, and Snoop's not just a rapper anymore. He's a businessman, a TV star, a sports commentator, even a cannabis mogul. He's done it all. Yet beneath all that success, Snoop's worried, real worried, about where the culture's headed. He's not out to hate on the youth, but he's calling it like he sees it. Hip-hop's originality is dying. His biggest issue. Everybody sounds the same, he said. Rappers are copying each other's cadences, slang, and style instead of standing out like they used to. During that same October 2024 talk with Dr. Dre, Snoop made it clear, back in his day, being unique was the goal. You couldn't walk into the studio trying to sound like another man. Now, he says, you scroll through playlists and you can't even tell who's who. To him, the individuality that once defined rap has faded, replaced by clones chasing viral hits instead of real art. When Snoop sat down with Dre, he didn't just vent. He dropped some real talk that doubled as both advice and a wake-up call for today's generation of rappers. He told the young artists flat out, be original. Find your own sound, even if it doesn't pop right away. To him, too many newcomers are chasing trends instead of chasing purpose. Snoop said he's sick of seeing everyone try to sound like whoever's hot that month, like the game turned into a big copy machine. He explained that the priorities in hip-hop have completely flipped. Back in his day, rappers were obsessed with craft, understanding melody, harmony, rhythm, and flow like true musicians. There was pride in learning how a song was built, not just how to rhyme over it. But now, Snoop says all that's gone out the window. These days, too many artists care more about going viral than making something timeless.
The whole thing used to be about creativity and understanding of musicianship, harmony, melody. That don't even matter no more. It's just auto-tune. Something I want to sound like him. I want to say what she said, but I want to, do the same things, but just in my own way, as opposed to let me be original.
What also eats at Snoop is the way today's artists treat sampling, something that's always been a sacred part of hip-hop culture. Snoop came up in an era where flipping an old record was like paying homage. You took something classic, added flavor, and gave it new life. But now, he says rappers are straight up messing up the songs they're sampling. They lift hooks from timeless hits without adding depth or creativity, basically stripping away what made those originals special in the first place. Snoop said that when he and his peers sampled legends like the Isley Brothers, George Clinton, or Curtis Mayfield, they made sure those tracks still shined. Their remixes brought attention and even new money to the old school artists who inspired them. But now, it's like folks just copy the catchiest part of a classic, slap on some auto-tune, and call it a day. No soul, no respect, no originality. For Snoop, that's not just lazy. It's disrespectful to the culture that built this entire genre. His frustration cuts deep, but it also exposes something bigger. These issues are just the symptoms. The real problem lies beneath the surface. And the person who pinpointed the root cause better than anyone? Andre 3000. Andre isn't just another rapper giving his 2 cents. He's one of hip-hop's most creative minds, a visionary who literally rewrote what Southern rap could be. As one half of Outkast, he didn't just make hits. He crafted art that bent genres, fused funk and soul with lyrical poetry, and blew open the doors for every Atlanta artist that came after him. Andre 3000's influence is legendary. In the late 90s and early 2000s, albums like Eight Lions, Aquemini, and Speakerbox Sunk the Love Below didn't just dominate charts. They redefined what hip-hop could sound like. Funk guitars, space-age beats, and lyrics that felt like philosophy over rhythm. It was weird, bold, and genius all at once. His work earned him 6 Grammys, critical acclaim across the world, and eventually a well-deserved place in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, at 49 years old, Andre has mostly stepped away from rap, choosing to create on his own terms. But when he speaks, the industry listens, because his thoughts about modern hip-hop hit harder than most active rappers' verses. He's not ranting, he's analyzing. And his perspective might just explain why so many artists sound exactly the same today, not because they want to, but because the system rewards imitation more than innovation. These days, Andre 3000 isn't chasing hits or fame, he's chasing peace. He spends most of his time playing the flute, diving deep into sounds and meditation, and in 2023, he released his experimental album, New Blue Sun. It wasn't rap, it wasn't radio-friendly, but it was pure Andre. Spiritual, strange, and free. Still, when he does speak on hip-hop, every word cuts through the noise. In a series of 2024 interviews, Andre dropped some of the sharpest, most insightful takes on what's really wrong with rap right now. His main point: simple but powerful. Artists don't have time to find themselves anymore. The pace of the industry is so fast, so obsessed with clicks, streams, and going viral, that rappers never get to truly figure out who they are. That's why everything sounds the same. It's not just laziness, it's pressure.
And that's one thing now, I don't think artists have time to cultivate themselves. So a lot of artists sound the same because you can quickly jump on a microphone. But it's awesome because you get an immediacy, but you don't get time to hone who you are.
Andre broke it down perfectly during a July 2024 episode of The Shop, saying when he and Big Boy first started Outkast, they sounded just like the artists they admired. If they had dropped that early music, he said, nobody would even remember us. But they didn't rush it. Instead, they spent years in the Dungeon family, a legendary Atlanta collective, experimenting, failing, and slowly discovering their own sound. That patience is what gave the world A.T. Lions, Aquemini, and Heya. Today's artists, they don't get that time. The industry moves too fast. Social media demands new songs every week, and streaming platforms reward quantity over quality. The whole system is built for speed, not growth. Andre even brought up Future and 2 Chainz as examples. He reminded fans that both of those stars didn't pop overnight. Back when Future first recorded, his voice and flow sounded completely different, almost traditional. Same with 2 Chainz back when he called himself Tighty Boy. He had to reinvent himself through years of trial and error. Those artists had time to fail, to grow, to find their truth. But now, with TikTok, SoundCloud, and social media blowing people up overnight, most new artists never get that chance. They go viral off one song, copy the next trend, and suddenly they're locked into a sound that isn't even theirs. Andre's point is that without that personal journey, that grind of discovering your own voice, you end up being an echo instead of an original. And that's not just a creative issue, it's systemic. The industry doesn't nurture artists anymore. It burns through them like fast food. Andre's warning hits deep because it's about something bigger. Hip-hop losing the human side that once made it revolutionary. That's where our next legend steps in. A man who's been fighting to keep hip-hop conscious, spiritual, and soulful from day one, Common. Born Lonnie Rashid Lynn Jr. in Chicago, Common came up in the early 90s during the rise of conscious rap, a movement that mixed jazz, poetry, and activism with street wisdom. His classic albums like Resurrection and Like Water for Chocolate didn't just sound good, they meant something. Every bar was a reflection of real life, faith, struggle, and love. Over the years, Common evolved into one of hip-hop's most respected elder voices. He's not just a Grammy-winning MC, he's also an Oscar-nominated actor, an activist, and a man who uses his platform for something bigger than fame. While others chase streams, Common chases purpose. And as he sees it, modern rap lost its soul somewhere along the way. He believes the culture's obsession with flexing, numbers, and trends drowned out what hip-hop was supposed to be, a voice for the voiceless. To Common, rap isn't just music, it's supposed to be truth set to rhythm. And when the truth gets lost, hip-hop becomes hollow. At 53 years old, Common is still proving that real lyricism never goes out of style. In 2024, he teamed up with legendary producer Pete Rock for the Auditorium Volume 1, a project that instantly brought back that golden 90s flavor, warm samples, poetic verses, and storytelling that hit straight to the heart. The album earned multiple Grammy nominations and reminded the world what hip-hop used to feel like when authenticity and soul mattered more than algorithms and clout. All through 2024, Common's been using his platform to call out what he sees as the biggest problem in modern rap: a lack of unity, purpose, and emotional truth. He's not hating on evolution. He's just disappointed that the message got lost somewhere in the noise. To him, the genre feels too scattered now. Everyone's doing their own thing, chasing trends, chasing streams, chasing likes, but nobody seems connected to the culture's deeper roots anymore. Instead of saying something real, too many artists are just trying to shock people for attention.
The 80s hip-hop and early 90s hip-hop was really conscious in certain ways.
In a July 2024 interview with NPR sitting beside Pete Rock, Common put it beautifully. He said hip-hop today is strong but shattered. There's still incredible talent out there, but it's all spread out. Different sounds, different vibes, different movements that rarely overlap. He said it's like the culture split into 100 little islands, each doing its own thing. Sure, that's diversity. But it also means we lost the sense of community that once made hip-hop unstoppable. He reminisced about the 90s, when rap brought people together. You could have songs that hit deeply personal notes and still spoke to everyone. Artists told stories that connected the block to the boardroom, unity through rhythm and poetry. But now, with algorithms dictating what gets pushed, everything feels more like marketing than music. Songs are made to fit TikTok trends instead of touching people's souls. What bothers Common the most, though, is the lack of realness. He says too many rappers today are playing characters, building fake personas for Instagram and TikTok instead of sharing their truth. They're creating brands instead of expressing selves. To him, that's where hip-hop starts to lose its humanity. Common has always believed that lyrics are what separate the greats from the good ones, that wordplay, meaning, and vulnerability are what make an MC timeless. Back in the day, producers like Pete Rock gave lyricists space to breathe, to shine, to be heard. The beats had soul, but the rhymes had purpose. Now, Common says, too much music feels like clickbait, empty shock value over genuine substance. He gave major props to Kendrick Lamar, calling him one of the few artists still keeping the flame alive. Kendrick, he said, writes music that speaks to people's hearts and minds, the kind of songs that make you think, not just nod your head. But Common wishes more rappers followed that example instead of chasing quick, viral fame. Everyone wants to go viral, he said, but nobody wants to be remembered. Common's critique about shock replacing substance and fake personas overshadowing truth cuts deep because it's not just about art, it's about identity. Hip-hop started as a way to tell the world who you really are when no one else would listen. Now, too often, it's become a way to sell an image. And while Common's focus is on the loss of authenticity, the next legend takes it even further. He says there's one thing, one specific force that has completely destroyed hip-hop's foundation. Pete Rock, real name Peter Phillips, is one of those names that defines hip-hop history. Hailing straight out of the Bronx, this man built the blueprint for East Coast production with his buttery soul samples, heavy drums, and that signature swing that made heads nod from Harlem to Tokyo. As one half of Pete Rock and CL Smooth, he helped craft the soundtrack of the 90s golden era, blending rhythm and reflection in ways nobody else could. His classic They Reminisce Over You, TROY, built around that unforgettable horn loop, wasn't just a song, it was a tribute to lost ones and a timeless masterpiece that still hits decades later.
Pete Rock said chasing money ruined hip-hop. And in the comments on the website, on Instagram, on Facebook, where this article was posted, shout out to Hip Hop DX, who I'm getting this article.
Over a career spanning more than 30 years, Pete Rock has produced for legends: Nas, A Tribe Called Quest, Public Enemy, and countless others. Now at 55, he's still proving the game can age like fine wine. His 2024 collab album with Common, The Auditorium Volume 1, scored Grammy nominations, reminding everyone that true artistry never fades. But beyond the music, the project gave Pete something else, a megaphone to speak his mind about what's really wrong with hip-hop today. And he didn't hold back. Pete's main message was sharp and unapologetic: chasing money destroyed the culture. What used to be about creativity, community, and soul has turned into a race for quick cash, viral fame, and clout. The heart that made hip-hop powerful, that raw human emotion, has been replaced by algorithms and dollar signs. Pete says the art form lost its balance. People care more about profit than passion.
See, a lot of these dudes, they sit around complaining about shit all day, man. It's just like, I'm not doing that. Listen, man, we're not gonna sit around a dinner table hungry when I can go out in the woods and figure some shit out. I'm not gonna sit around hungry complaining with my ribs touching, on no level.
In January 2024, during the 50th anniversary celebration of hip-hop, Pete went off on Instagram, dropping a truth bomb that shook the culture. He said the obsession with chasing the bag, slang for fast money, is the biggest virus killing the art. To Pete, hip-hop wasn't born from greed. It came from hunger. Hunger to express, to resist, to create. Watching that get replaced by money-hungry motives, he said, felt like watching something beautiful being slowly destroyed. Pete's post went viral because it hit deep. He wrote that hip-hop is being pile-driven straight into the ground by people who don't understand its roots. The pioneers built something timeless, a culture, not a cash machine. We created history, he said, but I don't know what they're creating now, because it sure ain't history or real hip-hop. And he didn't stop there. Pete also called out how hypersensitive people have gotten about criticism. He said anytime an OG tries to offer perspective, the new generation dismisses them as haters instead of listening. We're not hating, he said. We're protecting the art form. By the time The Auditorium Volume 1 dropped in September 2024, Pete Rock was on a full-blown mission. In radio interviews and podcasts, he doubled down, calling out the industry for chasing streams over soul. He said the music used to have feeling, something you could close your eyes and connect to. But now everything sounds mechanical, formulaic hits with no heart. Still, Pete isn't completely hopeless. He sees glimmers of realness in the younger generation, fans and underground artists who crave something authentic. He said the revival starts with emotion, putting soul and substance back into the beats and passion back into the pen. Because to him, the real spirit of hip-hop was never about who's trending, it was about who's telling the truth. Pete Rock's take about the money chase killing hip-hop's integrity hit hard, but the next legend took it even further, breaking down what's missing in the music itself that makes so many modern albums forgettable. That legend? None other than LL Cool J, the man who helped define rap's golden age and proved that hip-hop could be tough and tender at the same time. James Todd Smith, better known as LL Cool J, didn't just step onto the scene. He exploded onto it in 1985 as one of the first breakout stars on Def Jam Records. His debut album, Radio, was a game changer. Raw energy mixed with catchy hooks that made rap radio-ready without losing its bite. Then he flipped the script completely with I Need Love, showing the world that hip-hop could be romantic without losing street respect. That balance, confidence with vulnerability, made him a superstar. Over the next 4 decades, LL dropped 14 top 10 albums, won 2 Grammys, earned a Kennedy Center honor, and even became a full-blown Hollywood icon through his role on NCIS Los Angeles. He runs the Rock the Bells Festival, keeping classic hip-hop alive, and in 2024, at 57 years old, he dropped The Force, his first album in 11 years, proving he's still got bars sharper than ever. LL Cool J is living proof that longevity in rap isn't a myth, it's a mindset. But while his career is thriving, LL's not shy about calling out what's going wrong in the culture today. In interviews throughout 2024, he's made it clear that modern hip-hop has lost its heart. He says too much of today's rap feels shallow, full of flashy flexes and hollow boasts instead of real stories. Hip-hop used to speak for the underdogs, he said. Now it feels like it only speaks for the rich. That's a heavy statement coming from a man who's seen the culture evolve since the 80s.
Cats who want it right now, then they go and do their publishing deal, get a bag. They get a record deal, they get a bag. And if they lucky, then by the time they spend all their money, they got a song to catch. And if they lucky, they find another way by the time that money run out to get some more money.
In multiple late 2024 interviews, LL zeroed in on what he believes is the core issue: bad songwriting. He told the New York Times that he doesn't mind rappers talking about money, sex, or success. I love all that, he said with a laugh. But what's missing is substance and structure. It's not the topics that are the problem, it's how they're told. Every great rap song, he explained, needs a story, a journey, or at least a feeling that connects with the listener. Back in LL's era, rappers could brag, but they also bled on the track. His songs mixed strength with sensitivity, balancing bravado with emotion, cockiness with confession. Tracks like Mama Said Knock You Out and Hey Lover showed that you could be both powerful and vulnerable at the same time. That's what made LL's music timeless. It wasn't just about what he said, but how he made you feel. Now, he says, too many artists drop projects that sound like highlight reels, just endless flexing with no emotional depth. The result? Music that goes viral for a week, but gets forgotten a month later. You can't connect with something that doesn't have a heartbeat, LL said, and that line alone says it all. He also pointed out that hip-hop stopped being underdog music. What used to be an art form for the struggle, for the unheard and overlooked, has now turned elitist. Instead of speaking to the people, a lot of modern rap seems to be speaking at them, flaunting wealth and status rather than reflecting real life. LL's not against success. He's proof that you can win big and stay grounded. But he believes rap lost its balance. Where's the inspiration, he asked. Who's making songs that lift people up like we used to? For LL Cool J, the fix isn't about bashing the new wave. It's about rebuilding the connection between artist and audience. He says if rappers spent more time telling stories instead of selling images, hip-hop could feel alive again. Because at its core, the genre was never about showing off. It was about showing truth. These days, too many rappers flex their wealth like it's a trophy, acting like they're above the very people they came from. LL Cool J says that kind of attitude goes against everything hip-hop was built on. The genre used to be known as Black CNN, a raw and unfiltered report of what was really happening in the streets. But now, that truth-telling spirit has faded. As we head deeper into 2025, LL keeps hammering the same message. Hip-hop doesn't need more jewelry or luxury cars. It needs better songwriting and real substance. He says the music lost its roots because too many artists are chasing shock value instead of connection, image instead of impact. LL's point about hip-hop turning elitist and forgetting the art of storytelling perfectly explains the creative void we're seeing. But if you ask the next legend, the problem runs even deeper, because according to him, the stories themselves have stopped being real. Enter T.I., Clifford Joseph Harris Jr., the man who literally helped shape the sound of trap music. Coming straight out of Atlanta's Bankhead, T.I. emerged in the early 2000s and quickly crowned himself the King of the South. And honestly, he earned that title. Albums like Trap Music and Urban Legend laid the blueprint for what would become one of the biggest genres in the world. His storytelling, gritty, detailed, and full of heart, gave people an inside look at survival in the South. Over time, he evolved beyond just street talk, blending introspection, activism, and business moves into his art. With 14 albums, 5 number ones, 3 Grammys, and a Hollywood career, T.I. became one of hip-hop's rare, multi-dimensional moguls. Now at 45, T.I. sits comfortably in his role as trap's elder statesman, mentoring younger artists while still dropping music that speaks to the grind and the glory. But lately, he's been publicly frustrated with the direction the game has gone. His main complaint? The truth is gone. He says the new generation of rappers have traded authenticity for fantasy, fabricating stories instead of telling their own.
When it comes down to rap, I think that a lot of people are they're concentrating on rap and they're not concentrating on hip-hop. Hip-hop is a culture, a way of life, a way of thinking. Rap is, should I say, a deviation of that, or should I say a mutilation of that.
During a fiery appearance on the Earn Your Leisure podcast in early 2024, T.I. laid it out plain. These kids don't have real stories to tell anymore. Instead of rapping about the life they've lived, they're rapping about the life they want. He pointed out how so much of today's trap music is full of future tense. What I'm gonna buy, what I'm gonna do, what I'm gonna be, instead of real experiences. And that, he says, kills the emotional core that once made trap music powerful. T.I. reminded everyone what real trap used to represent: survival. It wasn't about bragging, it was about enduring. Back then, rappers told stories of police raids, hustling under pressure, losing friends to violence, and still finding a way to rise through it all. It was raw, painful, and honest. And that's why people connected to it. You could feel it. It was truth on a beat. Now, he says, too many artists are chasing the aesthetic of trap without understanding the weight of it. They mimic the slang, the look, the flow, but none of the experience. You can't rap about struggle if you've never struggled, he said bluntly. You can't fake pain. For T.I., that's the core issue. The new generation inherited the sound, but not the soul. And in his eyes, that's what separates a rapper from a storyteller. The beats might still bang, but the meaning is gone. And that's what he's fighting to bring back. The lyrics today sound empty, and T.I. isn't afraid to say it. He draws a sharp line between his come-up and what he hears in modern trap. When he made Rubber Band Man, that song wasn't fantasy. It came straight from the struggle. It came from watching his mama hustle to keep the lights on, and from his own grind that almost cost him his freedom. Every bar carried pain, pressure, and purpose. But now, He says too many new rappers brag about owning blocks they've never stepped foot on and driving cars they don't even have the keys to. He broke it down again during a June 2024 Billboard roundtable, saying most modern rappers sound like they're reading lyrics written by algorithms. They talk about flipping property, but never mention losing it to a snitch or seeing the feds shut down their trap. To him, that's the death of real trap music, when the scars became props and the stories turned into simulations made for clicks and streams. T.I. believes trap didn't die because it got commercial. It died because it lost its truth. Once the hunger turned to hype and the authenticity got replaced with imagination, the art form hollowed out. His frustration with what he calls aspirational trap, rapping about a lifestyle instead of living one, exposes the dishonesty sitting at the surface of today's rap game. But the next legend, he doesn't just think hip-hop's lost its honesty. He says what's happening now is an outright betrayal of everything the culture was built on. Enter KRS-One, Lawrence Parker, known worldwide as The Teacher. Since 1986, he's been hip-hop's moral compass, the man who stood for truth, education, and empowerment. With Boogie Down Productions, he launched the conscious rap movement, fusing street smarts with social justice on classics like South Bronx and My Philosophy. Over a 40-year career, KRS has dropped more than 30 albums, built a literal institution called the Temple of Hip Hop, and even released a spiritual guide in 2024 titled The Tao of Hip Hop. This man doesn't just rap. He preaches culture, and he's furious about what he sees happening to it. From interviews to his speeches, KRS-One has been on a mission to remind the world that hip-hop isn't just beats and bars. It's a way of life. And lately, that life's being corrupted by greed and imitation.
Opportunity for the world to hear your passion or hear your talents, man. By all means, make the move, man. Right. Make it to where the world can hear you and appreciate what you do, but just make sure you're being compensated for it.
During his powerful address at the Hip Hop 50 Summit in Atlanta in January 2024, KRS didn't mince words. He called modern rap a betrayal, a disrespect, and a disgrace to everything he and his generation built from the Bronx. He reminded the audience that KRS literally stands for knowledge reigns supreme, not cash rules supreme. He said, "We didn't build this to chase money. We built it to spread truth. But now, the truth's been traded for diamonds and designer clothes." He argued that what people call hip-hop today is more like celebrity gossip set to 808s, empty entertainment instead of community storytelling. Then, KRS broke down the three biggest problems he sees eating away at the culture. Materialism. He said too many artists worship wealth instead of using their platform to empower people. You can't talk about Bentleys, he said, while your community can't afford rent. What used to be a blueprint for liberation has become a catalog for consumption. Copycat culture. He slammed the way artists now sound identical, letting algorithms dictate their creativity. "You're letting a computer tell you how to express your soul," he said, and the crowd erupted in applause. Corporate control. He accused big labels and streaming platforms of controlling hip-hop's direction, pushing shock value and trends instead of truth and education. To KRS-One, this isn't evolution, it's erosion. He believes modern rap forgot its sacred duty to teach, uplift, and reflect real life. If hip-hop was born from struggle, he said, then the moment it stops speaking for the people, it stops being hip-hop. That message hit different, because coming from the teacher, it wasn't just criticism, it was a warning. Hip-hop was never meant to be elevator music. It was a weapon, a voice for the voiceless, poetry straight from the projects that spoke truth to power. But according to KRS-One, that power's been hijacked. What started as rebellion and resistance has been turned into background noise for the rich. During 2024, he kept pounding that same message everywhere he went, from lectures to interviews, warning that hip-hop's soul is slipping away. On NPR in April 2024, the teacher didn't hold back. He said flat out that hip-hop got hijacked by the same system it was built to fight. The very corporations that used to fear hip-hop's influence now own it, repackaging the culture and selling it back stripped of its power. They turned revolution into revenue, he said, and now the lyrics sound empty because they are. He contrasted today's content farming music with his own era, a time when artists sampled James Brown not just for the funk, but for the freedom. "We sampled soul to uplift souls," he said. "Now they sample streams and sales numbers." His point cut deep. Where hip-hop used to be alive with purpose, it's now stuck on repeat, repeating the same empty themes over and over. KRS-One's claim that rap has become a mutilation of the true hip-hop culture is bold, but he's not alone in that view. Because the next legend takes the argument even further, naming names, pointing fingers, and calling out exactly who's profiting from hip-hop's downfall. Enter Scarface, real name Brad Terrence Jordan, the dark poet of the South. Coming out of Houston's Fifth Ward in the late 1980s, Scarface changed the game with his raw storytelling and emotional honesty. As part of the Ghetto Boys, and later as a solo artist, he spoke about mental health, pain, and redemption long before it was cool to do so. Albums like The Diary and The Fix turned trauma into art and made him one of the most respected voices in rap history. A 3-time Grammy nominee and Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, Scarface has worked with everyone, from Jay-Z to Ice Cube, laying the foundation for Southern hip-hop and even influencing the trap generation that came after him. Now 54 years old and years removed from a life-saving liver transplant in 2021, Scarface is sober, grounded, and using his time to preserve Houston's hip-hop history through his foundation, mentoring young MCs and keeping the city's culture alive.
And today it's kind of lost integrity, it's lost its meaning, it's lost its love, which is why I made a Hip Hop is Dead.
But don't get it twisted. Scarface might be older, but he's angrier than ever. In interviews throughout 2024, he's been one of hip-hop's loudest truth-tellers, claiming the entire culture's been taken over and watered down by outside forces that don't respect where it came from. Interview. On an April 2024 episode of Drink Champs, Scarface unleashed a blistering rant that had social media buzzing for days. He said hip-hop is under attack, not from within, but from corporate hands pulling the strings. He claimed that white executives and tech giants have seized control of the genre, using it as a tool for profit while bleeding the actual artists dry. They took our culture, he said, and turned it into a business plan. He explained that not everyone being pushed today is talented. Some are just easy to control. Labels don't care about skill or message anymore. They care about what's marketable. They want puppets, not poets, Scarface said bluntly. He also laid heavy blame on streaming platforms like Spotify and Apple Music. According to him, they're the new gatekeepers, deciding who gets exposure, who gets buried, and how the money flows. They're picking the stars now, he said, not the streets. The same platforms that claim to democratize music are, in his view, quietly controlling it, deciding what the next generation hears, and by extension, what they believe. For Scarface, that's the ultimate betrayal. Because hip-hop was never supposed to be controlled. It was supposed to be free. They took something sacred, he said, and made it a product. Now we're just watching them sell our stories back to us. That's not just criticism, that's a call to arms. Streaming platforms didn't create hip-hop, but now they've hijacked it completely. They've turned what was once a revolutionary culture into a corporate system where artists get pennies while billion-dollar companies cash out. To Scarface, who already experienced shady contracts back in the 90s with the Ghetto Boys, this new system isn't just unfair, it's worse. Back then, labels exploited you through paper. Now, they do it through algorithms. He says the digital era has become a new form of slavery. Algorithms pushing meaningless, repetitive content while burying artists who actually have something real to say. Tracks like Mind Playing Tricks on Me once captured the pain and paranoia of life in the trenches, but those kind of songs don't get love on the charts anymore. The machines don't push emotion, they push engagement. By August 2025, Scarface had reached his breaking point. Appearing on Club Shay Shay with Shannon Sharp, he dropped a bombshell confession. He doesn't care about the music business anymore. His tone was heavy, raw, and full of disappointment. "I love hip-hop," he said, "but I hate what it's become." For him, the root of that bitterness runs deep, right down to racial inequality baked into the system from the start. Scarface talked about wanting to line up contracts from the Beastie Boys next to the Ghetto Boys, or Eminem's next to Van Halen's, just to show how wide the financial gap really is. Same business, different price tags, he said. He knows the numbers. And they don't lie. Black artists built the foundation, but white executives still hold the keys. The money flows upward, never back into the culture that created it. Streaming, he said, just made it slicker. paying crumbs to the artists while keeping the feast for the platforms. Scarface's anger about white gatekeepers dumbing down hip-hop and exploiting black artists through unfair contracts is damning, and he's not alone in feeling that way. But our next legend takes a step back from the fury to ask a bigger question. Is hip-hop truly dead, or just reborn in disguise? That's where Nasir Jones, steps in. The man who turned street corners into poetry and gave the world a mirror through his words. In 1994, his debut album Illmatic didn't just change rap, it defined lyricism. Every bar painted a cinematic picture of life in Queensbridge, every verse a piece of living art. Over 17 albums, from It Was Written to the King's Disease trilogy, Nas has chronicled the evolution of Black America through triumph and trauma, beauty and grit. Now, at 52, Nas stands as one of the last of hip-hop's sacred voices. He's got 18 Grammys, a Kennedy Center honor, and his own label, Mass Appeal Records, but he's still pushing forward in 2025 with creativity that refuses to age. His latest project, Legend Hazard, reimagines old-school tracks alongside icons like Ghostface Killah and Raekwon, blending wisdom with nostalgia. In March 2025, he dropped a verse on Time that critics called the most powerful rap verse of the year, and fans say he's teasing something even bigger. Illmatic 2, set for 2026. Back in 2006, Nas famously declared, "Hip-hop is dead." But now, 2 decades later, he's refined that message, saying the genre isn't dead, it's alive, but wounded. "It's surviving," he told The Source in March 2025. "It's hurting, but it's still breathing." Interview, 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 interview. He explained that while much of the scene feels oversaturated and short-lived, there are still flashes of brilliance proving real artistry can survive. He pointed to Kendrick Lamar's dominance with songs like Not Like Us and the long-awaited return of Clips after 16 years, coming back with raw hunger and authenticity. "When I hear that," Nas said, "I know hip-hop ain't dead. It's just buried under the noise." Still, he admits there's a crisis. Too much music dropping too fast, and too little patience to appreciate the greats. "Everyone's chasing virality," he said, "but nobody's chasing greatness." The result? Flash-in-the-pan artists who blow up overnight, only to fade before the year's out. Nas called it an implosion, the industry collapsing under its own speed. To make his point, he contrasted his own process writing Illmatic at 19, refining every verse, every bar, with how songs get made today. "Back then, we lived our lyrics before we wrote them," he said. "Now, people write hooks before they have even lived a line." The TikTok era, he believes, turned authenticity into a marketing tool. Hooks sell faster than honesty, and algorithms have replaced artistry. By July 2025, in a deep, complex interview, Nas mapped out hip-hop's entire evolution decade by decade. 1990s, the era of lyrical mastery. MCs like himself, Rakim, and AZ built legacies word by word. 2000s, the business era. Sales mattered, but the soul still burned strong. 2010s, the fashion show. More posing, less poetry. 2020s, the saturation point. Viral trends drown out truth, and clout replaced craft. He didn't sugarcoat it. He called clout chasing the biggest sin in modern rap. "They name-drop me, Pac, and Biggie for likes," he said, "but they don't live by what we stood for." He believes real greatness never needed gimmicks. It needed time, pain, and purpose. That's why through Mass Appeal Records, Nas is working to preserve the real essence of hip-hop, helping new artists stay grounded in truth while evolving with the times. To him, the genre isn't dying, it's just finding its way back home. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See you on the next one.